Hello, everyone. This is Addie's Diary Times Halftime Chat, and we are here with Jabari, who is the CEO and founder of R&B Only and Colors Worldwide. Jabari, how are you doing today?
Hey, I'm doing great. Thank you for having me. Had a bit of car troubles this morning and had some drama getting my daughter to her daycare, but we got it figured out. There was a
You
very
got it.
nice tow truck guy. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Okay,
Tow
good. Thank
truck
God.
guy actually dropped me and my family off to my daughter's daycare, which was
Wow.
like extremely nice. Yeah, he didn't have to do that. So I'm happy.
Yeah. Like a miracle in itself today. So, I
Yeah.
mean, at least you're starting, your day off great. Someone did a good deed for you. So, love to hear
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, congratulations again on your 10th anniversary of R&B Only.
Thank you. It's been a journey. 10 years is crazy to even think about that we've been
Mhm.
playing R&B music for people in uh, concert halls and venues for this long. But it's yeah, it feels like we're just getting started though. I know a lot of people say that and it kind of sounds cliche, but it really does feel like it's just the beginning because of how many new things we're branching into. So I'm
Right.
excited to talk about that.
Right. So speaking of the beginning, let's start at the beginning. Where are you from? We do have like a international audience, and some audiences are in the UK, Africa, worldwide. So where are you from?
Yep. Yeah, I'm not really from one place. So I grew up between New York and all over New York. When I say New York, it's just like people are like, "What part?" And I grew up everywhere between like right outside the city in Yonkers, um, which is it's like right above the Bronx. It's a little suburb from New York City. And then I moved all the way upstate to Ithaca, New York. That's where like Cornell University is. That's like 4 hours upstate. It's like
Right.
super small town. But then my mom and my dad were separated, so I spent a lot of time as well in Columbus, Ohio. So I went to like a little bit of middle school and high school in Columbus, Ohio. So I
And
grew up
yeah.
all around the place. Yeah.
Okay, nice. So being from New York, I know that's one of the homes of, hip hop. Did hip hop have anything to do with your upbringing?
Yeah, for sure. Hip hop, definitely. I mean, my both of my parents are from the Bronx, so that's the birthplace of hip hop.
Hmm.
So my first love, to be honest, I would say my first love, I mean, outside of my parents, is hip hop music. You know what I mean? Like, not a lot of people, they because of the business that I started and the brand I started as R&B, people think my first love is like R&B, but
Right.
not for sure. My first love is hip hop, and my whole desire to be in entertainment, music industry, all of that was really birthed from my parents playing a lot of hip hop and just growing
Right.
up around hip hop. Yeah.
So who were some of the most prominent figures within hip hop that you saw growing up?
Yeah, for sure. So my dad's favorite rapper is LL Cool J.
Okay.
So my dad played a ton of LL Cool J. But then, just growing up in New York, I was always listening to Hot 97. That was super influential in my life. Um, just listening to like the radio station at night, and especially at night was more so like the times where they would play stuff that wasn't sort of mainstream and popular. Um, so like Stretch and Bobito and those type of figures like DJs in New York. um, I just listened to the radio all the time in the 90s growing up, and like there was just so much stuff that was out. I was just being like Wu-Tang Clan. um, but then I think I started really wanting to, like, I was always listening to it actively, but just I didn't think it was going to be a career. But
Right.
honestly, like the person who made me want to make a career from it, and after seeing them, um, I know he's going through whatever he's going through, but it was definitely Diddy was my inspiration when I saw, what he was doing with music. I remember I watched like the More Money More Problems music video for the first time. I was in New York, uptown at my cousin's house, and I remember like there was a specific time that video was premiering, and we were outside playing, and we just had to run up the stairs and go and watch that video when it premiered. And it was like as soon as I saw that, I was like, I want to do that, whatever that is. I
Mhm.
see them like levitating in like shiny suits and stuff,
Mhm.
and I was like, I want to be a part of that somehow. So that was like my first like inspiration of how I wanted to get into the music business.
Okay, okay, nice. So moving around, did that have another thing to do with, you know, your music identity moving to Ohio and New York? What other
Yeah.
music influences were around you other than hip hop?
Yeah, well, I mean, number one, my mom was always playing like, classic soul music, R&B. My mom loved Sade, Erica Badu, artists like that, but then she also liked artists like Arrested Development, you know what I mean, who was like hip hop, but sort of conscious hip hop, you know what I mean, like hip hop very much with like a message of black empowerment and that type of thing. So I listened to so many different things, but I think the cool thing about going from place to place at an early age was I would. This is in the time of physical music, you know what I mean?
Mhm.
CDs, tapes, stuff like that. So when I was traveling back and forth from my dad's house to in New York and my grandmother's house in Harlem, and I would collect music when I was in New York, and then I would bring it back to Ohio.
Okay.
So when I was on the bus or my mom would pick me up and we would make the drive, I would always have music to share with my friends in various places. And as I got older, it was just the same thing. Like when I would like there was music that was popping off in Ohio that they didn't listen to in New York, and
Right.
so I would always bring the CDs. At first, it was tapes when I was a really young kid, and then when I was in high school, it got to CDs, and we started burning CDs, and then yeah. But I was always like the messenger of music between my family and friends in both places. So I always felt like I had a pretty diverse palette of what I was interested in.
Of music, yeah. Do you remember the first tape or CD that you bought yourself?
Ooh, if I'm being honest, I would say it wasn't that I bought myself. It was somebody bought it for me.
Hmm.
I want to say it was a CD. I think it was Big Willie style.
Okay.
Will Smith.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
That's
I think that was it.
okay.
Let me just Google the cover
Okay.
and then make sure that was it. But I think yeah, Big Willie style. Will Smith. That was the first CD I had in 1997. Yeah,
Awesome.
so I was
Awesome.
about 10 years old. First CD. I know I had tapes before then, but I
Like
just
cassette
can't
tape?
remember. Yeah, I had cassette tapes before then,
Okay.
but I know that this was my first CD.
Awesome. Yeah.
Yeah,
I can only imagine, growing up in the 90s, so many different types of artists.
yeah.
And you speak of buying your first CD in the late 90s. Who were you listening to around that time that eventually, well, I know you mentioned the hip hop, but who at that
Mm.
particular time made you think, okay, I'm going to study music or get more into music and take it more serious?
Yeah. So I would say a lot of the stuff that like at that time I probably started really getting into Jay-Z
Hmm.
and like just what the whole Rockefeller movement was doing. And that really when I first listened to Jay Z, that was like I'm studying lyrics. You know what I mean? I think like I loved what Will Smith was doing, but Jay
Right.
Z was just doing it on like a different level with the lyrics. You know what
Hmm.
I mean? And so Jay Z just sort of became my favorite rapper. Then I started listening to Nas, and then I started listening to just like a lot of lyric driven hip hop. And yeah, for sure, like a lot of my interest in working in music and studying lyrics definitely came from Jay Z and the entire Rockefeller Records
Hmm.
label.
So, would you say that listening to these lyrics and having these artists create these stories is something that you also do till this day with R&B only, and keeping that spirit of telling stories alive within music?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think that you know all I've been doing in my entire career in music has been telling stories. Like honestly, I just think that that whether I started managing artists. That was in high school. I would later went to Howard University.
Hmm.
Shout out to my hat right here. And I went to Howard University and I started like interviewing artists
Hmm.
and telling artists stories. Then I worked at Capitol Records, and I was just helping artists tell their stories um, through marketing them, and then I started making documentary films, and then I started having events, and at the events I was just telling stories. You know what I mean? Like, and then I started R&B only, and that's pretty much what it is. It's just like telling the story of a genre of music. Um, in a live event setting, and now we do so much more in terms of like just all of the media that we create around R&B music and all the artists that we work with. It's just the same thing over and over again, and it's telling stories through music or telling stories about a specific artist, um, and how to sort of market their music to more people. So yeah, but it's all rooted in storytelling for sure.
Okay. So you mentioned managing artists in high school, which is
Yeah.
wow. How important was it for you to continue your childhood dream? Because some people they have these passions, but they don't pursue it. How
Yeah.
important was it for you to keep that dream alive for your younger self?
Ooh, yeah. So, I mean, I really just a big shout out to my mom, because my mom allowed me to explore things that were so outside out of the box and not normal. You know what I mean? I was in clubs at like 16 years old, helping older mentor of mine who goes by the name of DJ Steph Floss, who's a really really famous DJ now. But I would load up his SUV with like vinyl records, and I would help him get the records into the clubs at about 6 p.m. after school when he was setting up, and then the club might open at like 9. But I would stay in there. So I was obviously underage, and I would just stay in there because I was there early, and I would stay by the DJ booth and not drink any alcohol or anything
Right,
like that. But I was just learning, learning about the industry, learning about. I just saw early like what records worked in club settings, um, and yeah, I just was like I was just getting a lot of knowledge, and my mom, not only did I convince her that this was something I wanted to do, but I think more importantly, she just supported what I wanted to do, even though she didn't really understand or know what it could lead to.
mhm,
She was just like, "Hey, he's not getting in trouble. He's not in the streets. His grades are good. He's
right,
in advanced classes and doing well. And so if he wants to do this, if he wants to be in this world with music, and he loves music so much, and he's around somebody that's responsible and safe, and she just supported it, and I think that a lot of kids with unorthodox dreams, sometimes they don't get that support at home,
right.
and it can kind of kill a dream. You know what I mean? If like the support isn't there, and so let alone me wanting to pursue it, I think it was the support of my mother that made me believe it was even possible. You know what I mean? Because if you got a cheerleader like that at home supporting you, then it really fuels your own belief that it's
Right,
possible and it can
right.
happen. Yeah. So
Yeah.
that
So
was
shout out to your mom,
yeah. Big
and
shout out to mom.
the arts. Yeah, that's amazing. So I
Definitely
graduated from an HBCU myself this past May.
amazing. Wow!
Yeah,
Congratulations. What
thank
school?
you. I went to Jackson State University.
Jackson State. Amazing.
Yeah, thank you. Yes. So what are some fundamentals that you learned within an HBCU that helped you within your career as you grew?
Woo. All right. So I feel like HBCUs are just breeding grounds for talent, because I always say that when you do something at a HBCU, it's like you're doing it in the real world, right? So like just just being on campus is like a fashion show. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Like everybody's fly, number one,
Yeah.
right? So everybody is kind of just like we're we're such a creative people. You know what I mean? Us as Black people in America. Um, so we're creative with our lingo. We're creative with our style. We're creative with the words we use online. This is why everybody borrows and takes stuff from us. You know what I mean? Like, and and so it's like that in school. It's like when you have this sort of amalgamation of all different types of Black folks, you know, not even just from America,
Mhm.
but from all over the place, get together. Uh, there is a healthy competition because you know that like who's next to you is really about that. You know what I mean? And they're really like they're really smart. They're really trying to get ahead. They're really trying to use this opportunity in school to set them up for their career. And
Mhm.
so I feel like when I was at Howard, everybody was doing things on a high level. You know, when we produced concerts, I was in a student group called EPP, and we used to produce concerts. We used to deal with like artist meet and greets when they came to college, and a lot of the students in the group were like label reps while in school, and you know we used to do giveaways and stuff like that. We just did so many things that would then like like it was a breeding ground for what we're all kind of doing today in the industry, you know. But it was at a smaller level because it was based around our college. But yeah, it was. I think just like the the seriousness of which in which people took um, their future careers. You know, people were really um, almost I would say like working like they were already working. You know,
Right.
at
Right.
HBCUs. Yeah.
Yes.
So that's something that I feel like there's a spirit of that in every HBCU for sure.
I absolutely agree. So after Howard and graduating, how did you make your way into Capitol Records?
Yeah. So man, that's a funny story. Basically, that was my uh, that was my first job out of high school. I mean,
Wow.
sorry, out of college, and that was my last job to this
Hmm.
day.
Wow.
So so okay, I had started interviewing a lot of artists that I would just find out about early. You know what I mean? So you know, some of those artists included like Justin Bieber and Nicki Minaj, and I was just early on a lot of these artists, and I was interviewing them when I was in college, and I was putting the interviews on my YouTube channel as well as this other website called hiphopgame.com, which is it doesn't exist anymore, um, but I was just putting these interviews up on the internet, and basically I had developed over the 4 years I was in school, I developed kind of like a library, if you will, of just content and interviews with some big artists, some small artists, but just everybody in between. And um, you know, I was trying to. I thought I was going to like host a TV show or something like that, but this is around the time. This is 2009,
Mhm.
so just like people's watching behavior had changed a lot as it relates to like media, and this was like where the move from like linear TV to YouTube and people cutting the cords and stuff like that was happening. And so there weren't really many like broadcast opportunities, but I saw this job at Capitol Records that had like social media in the title, and I was like, well, I'm pretty good at my own social media, and I also, you know, I help these artists get more visibility through like interviews with me, because I didn't just interview the artist and like put it up on YouTube. I really like did a lot of work of trying to then get those interviews on various blogs, and I would email people, and I was just like I was really adamant about marketing my own work because it showed the rest of the internet that I was a you know credible interviewer, um, but also it helped the artists, you know what I mean? And the
Right.
artists would really enjoy, like, oh, when I did this interview with Jabari, it wasn't on just on his platform; it was on this blog and this blog. Um, and so I I got an interview, landed this interview at Capitol, and I remember I didn't really have too much on my resume because I had the stuff that I was doing online, but I didn't have like quote unquote real jobs. You know what
Right,
I mean? Like
right,
my
right.
jobs before that was like
In college.
Pizza Hut.
Yeah.
No, I was in high school. It was like
Oh,
Kroger, Pizza Hut. You know what I mean?
okay.
Um, so those are my like for and Best Buy, and so yeah, I worked in the media section at Best Buy. But I did have an internship that was really valuable. I had an internship at Ebony Magazine where I learned.
Okay, nice,
I was in
nice.
the ad sales department there, and that was really, really. I learned a lot there. But anyways, so but it wasn't my resume that got me the job at Capital. It was my YouTube channel, to be honest. So I pulled up my YouTube channel like in the conference room that they were interviewing me in, and I just showed them all the interviews, and I showed them how I got them on other blogs, and that I
Mhm.
was editing the interviews myself, and just all this stuff that I could kind of do for their artist. I basically sold them on, hey, I've done this for me. Imagine if you gave me Katy
Right.
Perry or whatever. You know what I mean? All the artists that were over there. And yeah, it's just said I could really help develop a digital video strategy for all the artists on the label. And I walked out of there, went on a train to my dad's house, and like they literally called me when I was on the train. Said, "Hey, when can you start?" I was like, "I can start tomorrow." And they were like, "All right, well, you have to do some paperwork here."
Mhm.
And yeah, and then I ended up working there for 3 years, and it was an incredible learning experience, and really allowed me to see the business of a music company and a record label that was that big. And I learned a ton. I really loved my experience there. I was one of the youngest people that was working there. I was about 22, 23 at the time. And when I started, and yeah, and that was how I got the job pretty much, just really
Wow.
showing and improving, you know, what I had already done on my own outside of a traditional resume. And I think that that's even more important now for young people trying to get jobs and careers, especially in the age of AI.
Mhm.
I think more than ever, you have to show what you have done on your own, what type of audience you've cultivated, what type of work that you've been able to produce. Um, because now there's so many things that I don't want to say AI can just replicate and do, but there's a lot like what used to take maybe three, four, five people to do, it might take one person in AI. You know what I
Right,
mean?
right.
Like if you have a little understanding of like copywriting, you can like write a prompt and say, I want it to sound like this. And then you can like get whatever the thing that you're trying to publish out there is. And so it's like, there used to be these roles that were like copywriters, you know what I mean? People to just like write social media ad copy or
Mhm.
like that type of stuff or headlines and you know what I mean? Where like that stuff is just completely gone. Um, and so, yeah, I think it's about now being able to produce the work and show what you've been able to do by yourself, um, and then you know letting the company understand how that can impact their bottom line.
Mhm. Wow, it's amazing how, you get out of college and you bet on yourself to show them, like you said, if I can do this for myself, I can help your company too. And look at you now. So that's
Yeah,
that's,
thank you,
that's
thank
pretty amazing. But you also mentioned that this was your first and your last job. Do you
you.
mean
Yes,
this was the last? Do you mean this was the last time you worked for somebody else?
yeah. I mean, yes, that's what I mean. I mean, like that was my first and last time working for a company in a sense of like that my employment is
Right.
derived from um, this title or this job. So now I definitely work for people. I mean, I own my own company,
Hmm.
but I work for the customers of said company for sure.
Right.
You know, so yeah, it's entrepreneurship is I'm the boss, but the customers are ultimately my boss.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, did you always know that you wanted to pursue entrepreneurship, or did you always have in mind, I want to work in the music industry for someone else?
No, I think entrepreneurship was a natural progression. I didn't
Mhm.
always say I want to have my own this and that. I just wanted to do the things um, that I enjoyed doing in the music industry. And yeah, initially I was like, working at a record label. Maybe I thought about starting my own record label and that type of thing.
Right.
Um, but I think, one of the valuable lessons while I was at Capitol for 3 years, that's when I really found out I need to have my own company. I need to have my own business because although I learned so many valuable lessons there, I was still limited in terms of the ideas that I had and the things that I wanted to do. Big shout out to them for allowing me to accomplish and I had so many wild and crazy ideas that they actually uh, approved and let fly. You know what I mean? And but then I had a bunch of other stuff that like didn't make it. You know what I mean? And so, but they were learning just as I was learning, and at that, like I said, I was the first person hired in the organization ever with social media in their title. You know what I mean? Like there had never that job just had never existed. It was me and two other people who kind of were doing all types of different things with social media, and I was focused more on digital video. Um, but yeah, but nobody ever had social media in a job title before. And again, this is 2010, so we're talking about 15 years ago.
Right.
Um, so we were able to have a lot of firsts in the
Mhm.
record label, which was really cool. Um, and yeah, but I knew that if I really wanted to get all of my ideas done and sort of like um, solve the problems that I saw in the music industry, I would need to have my own company because I was going to happen in a big building like that.
Right.
And then also at the time, the label got restructured, and it was
Mhm.
originally owned by EMI, which was like one of the big four major labels. But then EMI folded, and so Capitol went to UMG, and then the publishing side of the business went to Sony. Um, and so a bunch of people got fired, and I
Right.
just missed that. But I left and quit before I got in that restructuring
Okay.
struggle.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good. Good. So back to the fact of your ideas that you had, which I'm sure that you still have today with the many different universes of R&B only. And
Yep.
I saw you mention in another interview how you just, I'm going to paraphrase here, when you say you need to really act on your ideas because it would basically make you a little bit angry if you saw someone else do what you wanted
Yeah.
to do. So
Yeah.
how do
Which
you?
constantly happens, which just happened with Spotify recently. Like I had an
Oh,
idea, and like Spotify just literally put out a video series called Outside.
hmm
I want you to finish the question, but and then I'll just talk
okay.
about it. So sorry,
Wow,
I'm
wow,
excited.
wow.
Yeah.
So for you as a creative, how important is it to you that you stay consistent to put out your work on a consistent basis?
Yeah. It's extremely important. I mean, I think now that my ideas have grown and that there's, just more capital and money and resources to be able to execute some of the ideas, my ideas grow. And so before I had ideas, I don't know, you could just equate it with a dollar sign. You could say like I had $1,000 ideas before. And
hmm
then a little bit later, I would have like tens of thousands of dollars ideas. Then I had hundreds of thousands of dollars ideas, and now I have these multi-million-dollar ideas. Um, and so I can accomplish a lot of the hundreds of thousands or tens of thousands of dollar ideas, but sometimes the multi-million-dollar ideas take like a partner and they take some sort of level of financing. Um, but yeah, it's just really important because you know I don't know. At the same time, there's nothing new under the sun, and a lot of times I think that if I have an idea, or if somebody on my team has an idea, that maybe that it's not the most novel thing in the world, and somebody's already done some form of it, or I think that somebody's going to do it because it's such a good idea, and if it hasn't really been seen, that it's only a matter of time before somebody
Right.
else does something similar to it. And so an example of that is and again, this is an example where I want to just reiterate that it's not the most novel idea. It's not. It's not. It's not that it hasn't been done by anybody before, but for our brand doing it would have been something like really unique.
Mhm.
So I had this concept called Scenic Soul. Right? It was a show. Well, it was really a music video kind of series. Let's call it a performance video series that I wanted R&B Only to produce, where we take records that were inspired by, and it was kind of, I guess, like, yeah, maybe like new records. So an artist puts out a project, we get inspired by a song, and we think that this song would be really cool to shoot them in like an outdoor location. Um, but it'd be a performance video. So there's kind of like multiple versions of music videos. There's a traditional music video. There's like a
Mhm.
visualizer. There's a performance video. There's a performance video that has a live track to it. There's a performance video that's just a studio track. So there's all these different kinds of like, music. That then there's like an actual performance video, which is more like what you
Mhm.
see on Tiny Desk, right? Like that's like a real, like, authentic performance video. So this would be more like performance video, i.e., it's not a music video, but it's the studio track playing. So the artist is really like lip syncing,
Mhm.
but we bring a mic and that type of things for the look of it being like a performance, right?
Right.
Um, so that was the idea, is to shoot them in like an outdoor setting, um, but just somewhere like extremely unique. So
Mhm.
maybe we were going to go to this, like we had an idea with a particular artist to go to this area in Utah. I believe it's called the Salt Flats, where it's just like a white space, and it's like miles and miles and miles, and it's just white. It looks like snow, but it's actually like
Mhm.
salt on the ground,
Okay.
and it's just like a really cool look. Um, and so then a few weeks go, or a few years go by. A lot of stuff happened with like why we didn't end up shooting that pilot episode. Um, but then a few weeks ago, I see Spotify do this series called Outside.
Mhm.
And it's literally like they took Giveon to like the Mojave Desert, brought a whole band. There's various setups. They did 3 different songs. It was lit beautifully. Uh, one of the songs was like when the sun was out, and then one of them was like golden hour when the sun was going down. It was just like they just did an incredible job. But it was basically the same sort of like idea that I had for
They
R&B Only to produce consistently. Um, and so now if we do it, we can still do it, and we may very well still may do it.
Mhm.
But there's going to be people out there who be like, "Oh, this is biting Spotify's thing." You know
Right.
what I mean? And like, it's just because they did it before us.
Right.
Simply. So,
That reminds me,
um,
like, so much of hearing the story about Michael Jackson. If he heard Prince, if he would wake
yes,
up in the middle of the night
yeah,
thinking that Prince had an idea, so he had to just get it out, write it down on paper, go in the
yeah.
studio. Wow.
I love that, and I mean that's healthy competition, right? And I
Mhm.
think that like yeah, certain things, you just got to do it, and you just got to put it out, especially if it's a like we just started a new series with R&B Only that has really taken off. But from idea to execution, it was a lower lift, so we could do it quicker. But like from idea to execution, it was done
Right.
fast, right? It was like, and now it's our series called Office Hours on
Mhm.
YouTube.
Is
Yeah, where the DJs literally, we had this concept. All right, people love our DJ sets at our shows. Why don't we do these DJ sets in our office? All right, had a team meeting.
Mhm.
What do we call it? Let's call it Office Hours. I wanted to call it Office Hour because it's only 1 hour each set. But
Right.
everybody else was like, no, call it Office Hours. And I was like, all right, cool, call it Office Hours. Um, and again, we didn't get hung up on, is it office hour or is it office hours, like whatever, you know what I mean? And we just said, all right, cool. We got all of our internal DJs.
Mhm.
Let's have that. Let's shoot all of these women first. So boom, we can knock that out. Shot it, got it out on our YouTube, and then we just started bringing in outside DJs. And now we put it out every single Monday. It's our most watched series on our YouTube channel,
Mhm.
and we have all these big plans and huge things to do with it and to expand DJ sets on our YouTube channel. And it's just become like actually a big part of our business. We it further helps us sell tickets, because people watch those DJ sets and they're like, oh, maybe I'll go to a show. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
And yeah, and it was just like, it was a quick idea. We were able to execute it quickly, test it in the marketplace, and see if it worked, and it showed some legs, and and some attention it garnered, and now it's like it's a big part of our media slate of things that we produce. So yeah, I think a lot of people are worried about, if they could do something perfectly. And also, let me also say that, like, how the series looks now, and it's about 5 months old. We've been doing it, and
Mhm.
we've dropped one every single Monday for the last 5 months. So consistency is really important about with ideas, but also it looks very different than what it even just in 5 months. It's just evolved. Number one, we've moved
Right.
into a bigger office space. But like the show evolves, and
Mhm.
like what happens in the show evolves, and we're doing one now. We're actually have one coming up later this month where we're bringing like an 8-piece orchestra in to
Wow.
play behind the DJ, and it's
Mhm.
just going to be like really unique and cool. So there's other things that we're just doing with it and testing out, and yeah, I know that's a long tangent about ideas, but it's just important to
Mhm.
get your ideas out and try to push out like a MVP first, which is a minimum viable product, just
Mhm.
something, um, because it can always evolve and change, and people enjoy seeing something change and evolve and grow. So if you have an idea, don't be scared and just put it out. And if you can't do it the way you want to do it, just do it the way you can do it,
Mhm.
what
Mhm.
your resources allow.
Mhm. So I do want to talk about the very beginning of R&B only. You
Sure.
are starting your very own business. What did that look like? Did you have support from not only family, friends, outside people who also saw your vision?
Hmm.
And part of that question is how important was it for you at the beginning to build a team of like-minded individuals so
Hmm.
that you could see your dream take off?
Well, all right. So first, R&B only is one brand
Mhm.
underneath our parent company, Colors Worldwide.
Okay.
So Colors Worldwide, and R&B only is like the, I don't know, the fifth brand that we popped off or tried to, so I think that even in that alone, you can see that there were a lot of attempts to try to make other things work, right?
Right.
And so Colors Worldwide started as like a small hip hop party, and I didn't have anybody assistance or help in terms of like financing or growing it, because the party was just making its own money. So I was just taking the profits from that event and putting it back into the business and doing a bigger one or in more cities or that type of thing. How R&B only was birthed out of that was at the end of those hip hop parties, I used to play R&B sets with the DJs that I had booked,
Mm.
and I noticed that everybody started coming for those R&B sets, or they really, really were reacting to the music a lot more than they were reacting to the hip hop music. People just belting out songs, and just it was just incredible. And so I started doing these R&B only events. I mean, even the name comes from like I was doing a hip hop event, and I said, well, I just literally asked the crowd, would you guys come if I did an R&B only show? And like everybody said, yeah, and the crowd
Mhm.
went crazy. And I was just like, what am I gonna call this R&B only show if I do it? And I was just like, oh, well, there's the name right there. Call it R&B
Yeah.
only, right?
Sure.
But it was not any more thought than that. And then as it kept growing, again, I had that format and framework of reinvesting the profits, put it in. If you make $5,000 on this event, put $4,000 back into the business, take $1,000 for yourself, pay your rent or whatever. And like, that's kind of how it grew. And I just bootstrapped it and scaled it myself, um, until the pandemic. I did like a small equity crowdfunding raise where I raised a little bit of capital from the public, which when I say the public, I mean like my fans
Mhm.
and the people who are fans of the brand. It wasn't really that much money. We raised about $250,000, and that wasn't really enough to scale the business to any sort of. But I just wanted to do something unique and different.
Right.
Give our fans a little piece of equity in the business. So we did that. A few people, got involved in the business, but to be honest, it was really just scaled by reinvesting the profits, and just growing, you know, like that. And then like some terrible loans in the beginning, and just like I was borrowing money from like loan sharks, to be honest. Like these like predatory like finance companies that were
Right.
giving me like 30% interest rates on money and that type of thing. But yeah, it wasn't any sort of investors or now later on, as the business became very successful and as we scaled and grow, and even, and I mean, now there are plenty of businesses that try to invest in the business or buy the business outright, or yeah, want just to acquire a piece of the business, and I typically turn all of those requests down.
Yeah.
But yeah, but it was just pouring money back into something that was growing.
Awesome. Yeah, I know. I love that because in college nowadays, they'll market us an R&B party, 2000s, 90s hits, but then we get there and it's literally modern rap music. So I'm glad that
Wow.
you for R&B music. That's
Yeah. Now it's, I mean, and the thing is with our shows, it's really important that we never said it was like when you come to R&B only live, you're gonna hear this era of R&B, right? Like
Mhm.
it's not a 90s thing, it's not a 2000s thing, it's literally just R&B from past to present. That's all. That's the only thing that we've promised. And we really try to tip our hat to the golden era of R&B and where it came from. But we also try to put people on and highlight where R&B is going and the
So,
future of R&B, and where and what the current and modern sounds like. Um, and it's everything in between, So, and that's what you're gonna see like on our YouTube channel, on our Instagram, on our TikTok, on everything that you see from us is always going to be this, um, this. It's going to show the breadth of R&B,
right.
and how wide and vast it is, um, because that's truly a representation of the music, and we feel like we are a element of, like, we've built our own ecosystem within R&B music, but we feel like we are an element of the larger R&B ecosystem, and that ecosystem is not just like one sound or one type of artist or one era of artists. You know what I mean? Like to have anything progress and move on, it has to keep evolving, and we're here for the evolution of it. But as the music evolves, it also is important to pay respects to where the music came from.
Right.
Um, and I think you have to do both to have a healthy ecosystem in a genre.
So do you see these concerts as just entertainment, or do you believe that they are truly a spiritual and a cultural experience?
Such a great question. Thank you. No, they're much more than a concert, to be honest. Like after doing this for 10 years and seeing and getting letters and emails and messages from people saying that you know they met somebody at one of our shows and they now have a family with that person,
Wow.
and they thank us so much for just like providing a space to
Mhm.
um, to have like just like unapologetic love and joy. Yeah, no, it's much more than just an event. You know what I mean? It definitely is like something spiritual happening with people. And if you just literally peruse our Instagram, you can see like again how vast that experience is, right? Like, I mean, we're gonna show you. We treat our Instagram and our TikTok more our Instagram because there's less limits on what we can post there. But
Mhm.
but you're gonna see like some crazy grinding on people, right? Because that's an element of the music that we don't,
Right.
steer away from, right? Like it's just a reality of like this music is like there's a whole subgenre of R&B music called like baby making music. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? Like, and so that's the reality. But then there's like you're gonna also see people just like singing. nobody's supposed to be here at the top of their lungs, or Keisha Cole's Love, or you know what I mean, just like in unison with each other, in the same way you might see a church choir singing. You know what I mean? Like, you're gonna see just so many different things that look like snapshots of the feelings that this music provides. So yeah, it's for some people it's just like, all right, cool, I'm just going out and having an event. I'm going to
Right.
an event. But I would say for most people, to be honest, like it's a lot more than that. Or they might come in thinking that, oh, I'm just going to listen to some music, and then they see the community that's in there, and they see like how how free you can be in the space, and and I think that they understand that it's much more.
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely. So you speak of new artists. What impact do you want your company to have on new artists' careers moving forward?
Wow, such a great question too. Okay, so we have a lot in